if you think of the finished space as a volume and you're cooling that volume or heating that volume, well, you're adding a percentage to your overall volume now that has to have cooling. So sometimes you get into a space and they have a great opportunity for sealing, but now your air handlers are too small because you've added a lot of space to cool.
Hello, hello. Ginny Bowling here with Pivotal REI, the real estate investing podcast. And today we have Ian Leveroni with us from Orlando. Ian, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
You have quite the background in building and value. I'm using a term I'm used to. It's called value engineering, but your management background helps you to do a lot to evaluate everything about a building, right? I'm going to read your bio as it is on the LinkedIn or on your website, if you don't mind. All right.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. It says, Mr. Leveroni has been a leader in real estate development and construction for over 26 years. He's been responsible for leading extremely complex projects, including the life sciences, industrial office, healthcare, banking, and hospitality areas. His involvement includes leading real estate development and project management and overseeing large-scale capital development projects to corporate or for corporate clients. So yeah, that's that when you get into life sciences and some of those projects, I don't know, is there an average size project that you're dealing with normally?
Well, those tended to scale, but I would say, and I'm going back a number of years still, and they were in the hundreds of millions of dollars even 20 years ago. So, I think the technology's changed and the sizes changed, but yeah, they were, the equipment alone is usually very, very expensive and very customized. So, sometimes you're building a $100 million building and there might be $75 million worth of equipment sitting inside of it. So very 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 technical, very very high demand projects. And they've always been, they're I think if you enjoy that, for me it was very enjoyable to kind of get into that kind of thing and see how things work and then know what you're doing. If you're saving somebody's life or coming up with a new product that could save somebody's life, that's always kind of a motivator.
So, that actually makes me realize I have a question in my head I didn't even realize. What is the primary type of life science building? Would it be hospitals? Are those
Well, I
life
mean,
science? Hmm.
I would call a hospital, I mean, they all tend to blend these days, but I would say a hospital, traditionally is probably just healthcare. I would look at that. Life science would be kind of a research laboratory, somewhere where
Okay.
they're doing maybe pure research or applied sciences or some sort of trials that are, still in discovery and research. Maybe they haven't produced anything. So that I think once you've kind of just come up with an idea and you've kind of tested it and whatever, kind of the pharmaceutical production side is kind of the next kind of phase in the cycle to say, all right, I've got an idea, this works, this seems to solve a problem, and now we're going to produce it as a drug. And so then you produce a trial and you go through the FDA, and if you get approved then you mass produce it, and now you've got Ozempic or a cancer drug or something that eventually makes it into a hospital and makes it into the doctor's office. So I think, and more recently, a lot of those things are kind of commingling. Like Advent Health has a couple of institutes and things right on their campus that are plugging right into real patients. So they're starting to really kind of make these things very adjacent to where they can continue their trials and their studies.
I learned that actually too with we were researching ambulatory surgery centers for investments. And it was very interesting to learn some of the proximate other ancillary type businesses that are usually right there, sometimes under the same ownership, sometimes not. But yeah, it's very interesting. And so when it comes to your practice, and you're the managing partner, or one of there's two of you, right?
There's two of us in leadership, yes, and then we have some project managers and senior project managers that help
Great,
us.
great. And you're the one here in Orlando running things here, right?
I am. I'm here in Orlando. My counterpart splits his time between Florida and North Carolina, and we're trying to figure out a way to get him here more so that
Ah,
we can we can spend more time together, and focus on Florida a little more together rather than, you know, uh, splitting his time so much. So
both markets are booming though, right? North
very
Carolina.
booming. So that's the part we're trying to figure out is how do we split that up so either it's both of us going frequently up there and back, or do we find another partner to help us stay there and be there more full time. So we're kind of working through what makes the most sense right now.
Well, you gotta
Yeah.
say, Zoom sure helps. So some of these meeting applications, right, where we can share our desktop.
Oh yeah, it's really come. I mean, it allows you to stay very mobile and to be wherever your clients need you to be. So
Yeah, a lot less cost in some cases, but yeah.
yeah,
So why don't you talk about the company and what y'all are working on now and have been and
sure.
that kind of background.
Sure. Smart Projects Group came into existence. I guess it was like the end of 2018. We finally hit the street, I think, and pure commercial real estate project management, owners representation, development management firm. So we help clients take an idea, vision, and just help them figure out how to get it, across the finish line and open for business, and help them, mitigate their risks, understand their budgets, understand the constraints, and help them bring the right team together to deliver. And that's a huge part of it, is just really getting the right team of people together to help deliver that project. And as far as types of projects, so we're doing some farm and advanced manufacturing right now. We are currently working on some early stage stuff with data centers, but that is it's so hot that it tends to burn up before it turns in anything. So it's a very interesting market. There's a lot going on, but there's definitely a lot of turbulence in if you're keeping up with the news on it, with just being in someone's backyard, and the power and cooling load that it takes, and just a lot of the things that are starting to become headwinds for it, but they are navigating. It is a really heavily growing sector. And then senior living and some healthcare have been kind of more prominent lately. I think office markets have been ebbing and flowing. We do that too, but we've been probably focused on some of these other areas a little more heavily in the last year or two. So
That all fits very much with what I see as an investor. The silver tsunami, all of us baby boomers that are hitting the age where, a lot of boomers are in assisted living and have been for a while. And so there's big demand for that and the medical facilities. And then assisted is like growing into different hybrids, it seems like. So I'm sure, that people, especially if you can take them cradle to grave, I think you said, or well, that's kind of the assisted living term, right? Not to
yeah,
grave, but
yeah, yeah. We were trying to avoid that, but
right. But yeah, normally an investor developer has different experts for different times of development, but you guys are ready to help from the get-go with the entitlement. So I would think that's pretty rare, isn't it?
I mean, I think everybody has their niche, but I mean, having come from, I think, being in construction and having come from that early in my career, I mean, there's really, it's better I always look at it as if you can help a client as early as possible get the most information to make a decision, right? So, even just like some of the visualization and things with just testing something on a site to see if it'll work. I mean, the earlier you can get that information known, the better it is because then it lowers their cost basis. They can maybe move on to the next property that fits better, even though it wasn't their first pick. So I think, if we can help them figure out if they can get the entitlements and navigate through it, that's what we want to do is help them get to the next stage as quick as possible with good information. So
And this is the prime time for me to ask you to share with the listeners what is the takeaway you want them to have after listening to this episode?
I think takeaway is, we're here to help clients, and whether it's a big pharma project or a small build out, we're here to help clients realize their vision and help them protect their risks and do what they do best, right? So, whether they're a developer that just doesn't have a lot of resources, or they're an operator or an independent business person, we want to let you do what you do best, and we want to help you through all the things you either don't have the time to do or just don't really want to do. So, we're very adaptable to helping our clients succeed by plugging in and really just helping them be an extension of them delivering the project.
Great, great. Now you're certified in a couple different things, right? Or credentialed, I guess. Why don't you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a PMP, project management professional. So, definitely live and breathe the process and all of that. And I think at the same time, I understand the process is great unless it inhibits the productivity, right? So, so sometimes you have to understand that, following a process is very helpful, but learning to find ways to adapt and streamline without compromising the end goal is helpful, especially when you're dealing with projects that are on accelerated schedules or you just have limited resources and so forth. Also a lead accredited professional, so been a part of multiple lead lead certified projects, and it's a great effort. I think a lot of the codes these days have kind of caught up. So, I think you can probably get pretty close to lead certified with just meeting code these days. I mean, it's getting real close. Maybe not gold, but I mean, you can definitely be on the list. Whereas, probably 10, 15 years ago, you were definitely going above and beyond on multiple fronts to do that. But I think it is good to see that everything's kind of tracking. So the building codes are trying to be efficient with some of this energy savings and whatnot in addition. So yeah, and being a part of those are great because it really forces you to think about a lot of those things and all that goes into them.
Right, for sure. And in that same vein, I should mention to you, I happen to know somebody that's getting ready to build a manufacturing plant for solar panels here in
Oh
the
wow.
greater Orlando area. And so if that comes up as something, especially as you mess with data centers,
Oh
I
wow.
also
Yeah.
have another contact that's actually been on the podcast that specializes in bringing infrastructure to things like data centers. And so yeah, you probably realize the little package, the nuclear kits that they're talking about are
Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many things being discussed, and they're all real solutions because of the amount of just the sheer amount of energy that
yeah,
those things consume. So
right. Yeah, it's an exciting time. We're going to be such a different place in the next 10 years because of the AI and all these technologies. Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah, it's come a long way. I think it seems like every year the advancement gets quicker and quicker. So
Well, now I want to also bring you to more of like what I deal with. I don't do new construction, at least at this point right now. I have centered mainly on value add, is what we call it in our industry and the investor world, because we are taking a distressed asset and putting in the money that it takes to improve it. So we're adding value that way. And someone like yourself is like a fantastic one to bring on our walkthroughs, especially on these older properties and whatnot, because all those eyes and expert inputs can really make a difference when you're evaluating one of these investments. Because we'll look at apartments that are, 150 to 300 or more units. I don't try to go over 300 personally, but I can end up, I mean, I'm in some in Houston that's 550. Um, it just depends on who the team is and
Sure.
what the property is and if things fit, because we tailor the team pretty much to the property in this syndication world. But yeah, someone like you is very important to bring along. And so have you not necessarily just apartments, but medical facilities, like I told you, ambulatory surgery centers? I would love to have the expertise of someone like you on the first walkthrough, even. Is that something you would be available to do?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I think a lot of that, it's very helpful for everybody that comes later, including the client to figure out if they even want to make, make the deal happen. But yeah, we helped a couple clients in the kind of vacation rental world. They had some properties that just I think the deferred maintenance had like five deferreds on it. So there was, definitely some wear and tear. There were a couple of anomalies where they had some bats living up in very, very simple things, but that added a lot of hidden, cause for concern, things that needed to be addressed in terms of, renovations and whatnot. And then, in inside spaces, yeah, it's always, especially older buildings, really, the more eyes you can put on it to understand how it was made, what they did, what are you going to be expected to do once you decided to go through with it? Like, what are the codes now going to tell you you have to change, even though you might not be touching the area, they may say, well, since you're in there, you have to do it, so just
Yeah,
being aware
absolutely.
of all those things.
Yeah, especially when you start getting up there in dollars. If you get to 50% of the assessed value, you have to bring it all the way to code. So
Right.
that's a tricky thing. You want to try to be careful of that. But it's funny, the biggest thing that I see that I always want to do on these older buildings is get rid of the ceiling height. If there's a way to open up, how often can you actually open those up? Do you have any feel for that?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm smiling because it's a common thing, and it's great. I think there's two things that most interested parties are up against. One is the deck height, right? So is the structural deck height above the finished ceiling significant enough to consider that, right? So if it's
Make a difference?
4 feet above it, then maybe it's worth it, right? But if it's sitting inches above it, it's probably a lot of work to go through for not a lot of benefit. And then the other thing that usually comes up is when there is a ceiling, I think people tend to go with that mentality, like nobody will see it, so I can just do it this way, right? Where when you actually build something that has, an open ceiling, wires tend to end up in conduits that get painted, and ductwork's somehow always straighter, and there's always little things that go into that because you're going to see it, and you want it to look nice and organized, whereas if you're just throwing a ceiling over it, sometimes at the 11th hour people just get up there and put stuff in and nobody's the wiser because you're not going to see it. But then you start taking it out, now you see all that's involved. You've got to probably repipe or rewire things to make them look good because I think the hard part is to take the ceiling out and see what's there, and most people aren't going to think it's going to look very good, because it wasn't designed that way. So, but it does add a lot of value. Now, the one thing I think for benefit of people is it can add cost, because if you think of the finished space as a volume and you're cooling that volume or heating that volume, well, you're adding a percentage to your overall volume now that has to have cooling. So sometimes you get into a space and they have a great opportunity for sealing, but now your air handlers are too small because you've added a lot of space to cool. So you have to consider some of those things as well. So,
Right. That, yeah, goes with, yeah. And I probably have a higher tolerance than most. I like the industrial look. So, paint it all gray and let the conduit be as hidden as possible, but don't worry about it. But I live the life of infrastructure. So
right.
I don't mind seeing some infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, the other one is rooftops. You can't use just any rooftop that's flat, huh?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing, I mean, and it's a conversation that I would say has come up more and more over the years that, used to be just the roof joist. They supported was the air handlers on top and a couple of things, but like they were not set up for anything more than that. And for good reason, for cost and whatnot. But now everybody wants to know if they can have a space outside on the rooftop. So yeah, I mean, so that's another one where you may have to enhance the structural capacity of your roof joists if you decide you want to have a space up there that, that's functional. So, they're all great things. It's just knowing in advance and making sure it makes financial sense, right? If the numbers pencil, then that's good. If it's a surprise, that's never good, right? So,
So bring Ian and his group.
happy to
You
help.
you can go in the attic and assess or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. On a cooler day, right?
On a cooler day, I'll probably have to lose a few pounds, but
No, no, you don't have to go up. You're the manager. Anyway, well, good. Well, so I want you to go ahead and say your takeaway again, and then we'll move on to the wrapping this up.
Sure. Yeah. For clients, I think for um, projects, I mean, we're here to help our clients realize their vision and be flexible and adaptable to whatever their culture and their ecosystem is. So, whether they're an occupier or a developer or an investor, we want to help you do the things that you either don't want to do or aren't, an expert at, and let you do the things that you are an expert at and that you do well so that you can focus on that and then help you, again, manage your risks and control the schedule and deliver a project as efficient as possible and allow it to be what you started out pursuing.
Great. All right. Now, as you know, we have a Local Legends and Pivotal People series, and I always ask people if there's a special person or event that brought them to where they are today or is pushing them towards a goal. And what's your answer for that?
Gosh, there are a lot of good people here in this market, but I would say, there are probably two people. I think one has been probably more inspiring in terms of just just leading me to grow as a project manager and understand kind of the full gamut. I think his name is John Passione. He was my boss a long time ago, and we've stayed in touch over the years. But very very good guy, very patient, very understanding, and very knowledgeable. And then I think the other who I think who's really been a mentor to me and was a neighbor and was a good friend too. Sarah Kelly has really just always been a tremendous value and just bounce idea off of help, really just somebody who really has always been very helpful and just knows Orlando and is so well known and respected in Orlando. So I would definitely say she's probably top of the list.
So you're nominating them both as pivotal people.
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Very
so.
good. All right. All right. Well, why don't you tell people how they can reach you?
Sure. Well, our website is www.spg-cre.com. My best way to get a hold of me is my mobile number, which is area code 858-336-8281. And my email address is IANL at spg-cre.com.
All right. And that website was SPG, like Smart Projects Group.
Correct.
SPG, right? Yeah. And we'll put that in the show notes, of course. And if you want to, for instance, attach anything, you just let me know. We're going to send you the show notes, and you can add on to that if there's anything more that you think of at that point. But I
Very
wanted
good.
to thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.